The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Yes, coming to you cordless, everybody. It's Wednesday night, June 26, 2024. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 8 p.m. on the West Coast, 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the Sydney Opera House in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis, just a stone's throw across the river from downtown. It's 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 127 if you're keeping score at home. Nice to see you folks. I'm feeling a little better. I had surgery 3 weeks ago on Monday. It's been a hip replacement. It's been a long slog, I got to tell you. But I seem to have made some really great progress today. So I'm glad to tell you that. So, you know what we got going on here? So I'm talking to my wife who thinks I'm full of shit. And I said, I got a new catchphrase, Karen. I said, here it is. We got it going on. And she said, okay, boomer. Yeah, I know. All right. So you want to know what's going on here? Tonight, our guest is Jazz Shaw. He's a weekend editor of hotair.com. He's also the UFO point man for the entirety of Salem Media. I call him my brother from another mother, because he's the only guy I know who has basically the same gig on the internet I do. We talk about conservative politics and UFOs. That's what we talk about, and that's what we're going to talk about here tonight. Now, the interview was taped. I have to explain this to you. This show is live. I am sitting, if you're watching it live anyway, and I got to admit, I know that most people don't. It's on-demand viewing mostly, but if you're watching it live, if it's 10 p.m. Central Time where you're at, or now it's 10:02, this is live. But we offer our guests the opportunity to tape their interviews in the afternoon, because especially people on the East Coast, they don't want to come on at 11:30 at night. It's past their bedtime. People have jobs and they need to sleep, especially the people we talk to who actually have real lives. So about half the interviews we do are pre-taped. This is one of them. I got a regular, Jazz comes on regularly. We got a stable of people come on about once every 6 weeks or so. And usually most of them want to pre-tape their interviews. So it's about half of them are pre-taped. The show itself is live. So the show that I'm doing right now is live, and then it's wrapped around the pre-tape interview. That's the way it works. If you want to know, and you probably don't know or want to know or want to care. Okay, that's tonight. We already did the interview with Jazz. We're going to replay it for you. Tomorrow night, debate night. All right, so we have a debate panel. It's Don Zoro, Tim Conaway, and Larry Newman. Don Zoro won't be joining us. It turns out he has to be somewhere at the last minute. And he's the one who works most evenings, because, he's an intelligence operative, and we tease him about this. But sometimes I think he gets on a plane and goes over to the Middle East and kills people. I'm not kidding. He can't talk about it. But in his place, Jeff Meyer, the CEO and publisher of Conk.com, Conk News is our sponsor. He's going to be coming on instead of us. Now, we're going live tomorrow night right after the debate, which is scheduled to end at 10:30 Eastern. So, as a matter of fact, we're only going to do, we usually do 5-minute countdown here, let you people get settled in with your, simultini or whatever you're drinking. Jazz, you'll notice on the and he actually is on the interviews. He's always drinking a martini when we talk to him. So, you get 5 minutes to fire your martini up. We're going to have a 1-minute countdown tomorrow. We're going to go live after the debate panel. We're taking calls. Now, you got to see the banner at the bottom of the screen here, the ticker. We're taking calls tonight too, but not during the interview, of course, because the interview is pre-taped. So especially for part 3. I got some UFO news tonight, even though Jazz and I talked about some of that stuff at the end. We usually leave that for the end. I got some more UFO news tonight. So that's usually goes in part 3 or the C block, whatever the hell you want to call it. So yeah, tomorrow night, live right after the debate, and we chew the fat, and you're welcome to call in. Very welcome, as a matter of fact. That's particularly these debate panels we do are relatively high viewership for us, and especially live too, which kind of surprises me because there's a lot of competition. But apparently, I know that the panel, excuse me. So I'm the former editor in chief of Con News, which is Jeff Meyer's company, and this panel has been together for years. We used to do an audio podcast at Conk called the Conk Weekend Report, and that was basically it was these three guys and me, and basically just chewing the fat all the time. So that's tomorrow night. Okay, uh, next Monday we're kind of sort of back to 100% here. Now I have missed, oh my God, it's terrible. I missed 2 weeks entirely, and I don't think we've done a full week of 4 shows in probably at least 6 weeks because of my condition, whatever you want to call it. And of course, next week I'd like to say we're back to full force, and we are, except 4th of July is on Thursday, and we're gonna skip that. So no one's gonna be watching. You're all off the fireworks. So yeah, okay, fine. So we're coming back on Monday. So that's what we got going on. So let me tell you, and before I do anything else, let me actually show you this to you. This is the front page of Kong News in real time. It's a news aggregator. So what Kong News does is it goes out and collects news from 75 different sources on the internet. Their servers go out every 3 hours, collect all the stories, all the new ones, and then it chronologically lays them out on the front page of Kong News in the order they're posted, regardless of the source. And that's actually important because most news aggregators will list like the top shows from Breitbart and then Fox News and then maybe 100% Fed Up or whatever they got going on. They'll list them in order. This mixes it all up. So all the stories are at the top of the page are the most new. Is that a term? I don't even know. Regardless of where they're from. The pictures are from the stories and the headlines are not rewritten. They're from the stories too. So if you click through, you don't go to an interstitial page, you don't go to an ad, you don't go to the front page of that website, you go directly to that article. This is the closest thing to an online newspaper for you old farts who love newspapers that I can think of. I was proud to be involved with this organization. Like I said, I worked there for several years. It's a fantastic product. Very, very proud to be part of it. I'm very proud of the fact they're sponsoring the show too. So yeah, so I would check this out. And there's another thing too. This is very important. You don't have to register to see this. You don't have to pay. It's free, and it's basically a one-page website. You go to conk.com, 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 and you can check it out. It all changes not all of it. Most of it changes every 3 hours. So you go at 10 a.m. You look in the news. If you click through a bunch of stories, you can burn a couple hours reading this. I mean, this page here is very, very long. So and then you come back. You can come back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 hours later, and 80% of it is different. So and they're all the news stuff's at the top. So if you love news, if you're a news junkie, you can't do better than this. I still use this constantly to plan our shows. So check this out if you get a chance. conk.com, Conk News. Glad to have them around. All right, so I'm going to offer my predictions for tomorrow night because I don't want to, by the time we go on tomorrow night, it's done. It's over. It appears that everybody's tuning in to see if Biden can make it through. Here's my prediction. He can't. I don't think he can. They're going to fill his butt with Adderall, cocaine. Who the hell knows? I don't know what the cocktail is they're giving him, but he goes to the State of the Union. He does these press conferences every once in a while where he's obviously jacked up. But the thing I've noticed, and I've talked to the guys about this, and they seem to agree with me, he can't stay jacked up for more than about 45 minutes. After that, he starts to fade. This is a 90-minute uh, uh, debate. There's 2 commercial breaks, but the staff of either of the candidates are not allowed to approach the stage during the breaks, and the candidates are not allowed to sit down. So, and also they don't have any notes in front of them, none. Now, I don't have to tell you this. Trump is a masterful ad libber. I mean, he does these 1 hour, 20-minute rallies. Although there is a teleprompter, he barely uses it. I mean, he has no trouble doing this at all. And like so many people pointed out, and Jazz and I talk about this in just a few minutes here, about basically Trump doesn't even have to win. All he has to do is keep from making an ass out of himself. And he could make an ass out of himself if he handles this badly. I mean, it's pretty much regarded that in 2020, he handled the first debate very badly. That's pretty much agreed upon. The thing is, he's more disciplined now, and I don't think that's going to happen. Now, Biden, on the other hand, I don't think Biden can make it through the 90 minutes. What my prediction is that sometime in the last half hour of that debate, he will make a major flub or a major gaffe. I'm not talking about minor stuff here. I'm talking about the fact where he starts to, you've heard this. He starts to speak unintelligibly, or he literally maybe just wanders off the stage, something like that. There's a lot of people who are predicting, and the scuttle in the Democratic Party is if that happens, his candidacy is over. That he's going to be approached just like they approached Nixon in 1974 when Robert Dole made the very famous trek from the Capitol to the White House to tell Nixon he was done. Supposedly, they're saying the force from the 4 horsemen I've heard is it would be Pelosi, Schumer, Obama, and Hillary Clinton, and they would go to the White House and tell Biden it's over. Now, does that mean it's over? No, I don't think it does, because Biden is a jackass. I do not think this guy will give it up for anything. I mean, he has to quit. They can't quote unquote fire him. They can't unnominate him. He would have to step down, not from the presidency, but from the nomination. And I don't think he would. So this is a really interesting thing. But yeah, that's my prediction, is that in the last 30 minutes of this debate or thereabouts, he will make a huge blunder, or his age will show. And that will be disaster, because right now 67% of the public, and God knows Fox News and Johnny and the Jesse Waters show is running around sticking microphones at everybody seems to think he's too old to do this. And I've said this too. Even if things were going well, his presidency has been a disaster. I mean, I said this before Bill O'Reilly said it, and Bill O'Reilly's right, and that is he's going to go down in history as the second worst president we've ever had, and only James Buchanan will be worse, and that's because Buchanan basically let the Civil War happen. That's the only reason. So even if he was doing a good job, people are saying he's too old to do it, and he's not doing a good job. So it's going to be really interesting. And I think I have to tell you, I think I mentioned this a couple days ago. I hope he doesn't matter me saying this. Conaway, who's on the panel, he writes me back. He says, "Do I have to watch the debate?" Yeah. You got to watch at least a little of it. You got to watch it. And that's the thing. I think people are going to tune in at the beginning and tune out, because in my mind, anything drastic that happens will happen toward the end. That's what I think, because he just can't last 90 minutes. He can't do it. An hour, maybe. He got through the State of the Union, which I think was 62 minutes or something like that. And he's done about an hour and 10 in the past, even though he looks a little ragged toward the end. 90 minutes, an hour and a half. No, I don't think he can do it. I don't. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I know that the betting odds right now are that he can't get through it either. And it's really weird about how that works. The betting odds for anything, when you start to bet, you start to get bets from a large pool of people, and especially if there's real money on the line, it's astonishing how accurate that stuff can be. It really is. And right now, the betting odds are going totally against him too. I'm starting to think anything can happen between now and November. I mean, that's really true. I asked Jazz about the Black Swan event, which is the thing that's completely unexpected that upends the whole thing. And I have said that although everyone expects it kind of to hurt Trump, I think if this happens and we have a Black Swan event, it will end up hurting Biden. And my spidey sense tells me it would have something maybe to do with either the Israeli or the Ukraine war. I don't know, but right now I think the election in November is going to go down almost exactly the way 1980 went down between Reagan and Carter, and that is it wasn't really a blowout for Reagan, not in terms of the popular vote, but in terms of the electoral college it was, and so you look at Trump, he barely won in 2016 and he barely lost in 2020. I don't even know if he actually would win the popular vote, but I have the feeling that the electoral count will be a blowout. I do. I think that's pretty much what happened to Reagan too. And the parallels are actually quite unnerving. Like, and I was talking about the other night too on Monday night. I was talking about the fact that I spent, I basically did 2 weeks after first 2 weeks of my recovery from surgery, I did nothing, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get so much done. I'm going to, I'll be sitting. I can sit at a desk, and I don't have to, I'm not going to be no bull. Well, I slept. I slept, and I watched TV. And what did I watch on TV? I watched a lot of YouTube. And okay, so here's my thing. I like classic cars. I watch about the cars. I'm a frustrated architect. I watch about stuff about architecture and buildings. I watch that stuff, and I'm a student of talk media. As we had Michael Harrison on Monday. He's I call him the grand poobah of talk media in the United States, and he is because he's the publisher and founder of Talkers Magazine, which is the trade publication of talk media in America. And uh, I ended up watching Tom Snyder. And those of you who don't know, Snyder started on a show in the 1970s called The Tomorrow Show, which was the show which was programmed right after Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. And I think he started in 72, and I think it went to 81. And he did like 4 or 5 different versions of the show on different various networks and various times, all the way up to like 1996, if I'm right. So I mean, he had a long run, but not necessarily in the same spot. Just very quickly, he was on NBC after the Tonight Show. They let him go. He ended up on the radio, ABC Radio, pretty much the same show. It was 3 hours. He took phone calls, but it's pretty much the same show. Then he ended up on CNBC, the same 1 hour, but he took phone calls there too, which was a new thing for television. I think he might have been the first television show in America to take phone calls, and they did it live, of course, for that reason. And then he ended up the most famous iteration of that is he ended up he was the first host of the Late Late Show after David Letterman, and that started in 1995, I think. I think he did that from 95 to 99, and he passed away in 2007. And I knew Tom a little bit. Him and we did communicate a little bit, which was very, very nice. But the thing is, I brought that up because, talking about 1980, this election being like 1980, I'm watching these old Tomorrow Show episodes, and you have to understand, when I was in college at this time, we would fight sleep to watch this. I mean, it was because he was so damn interesting, and he was a fantastic interviewer. And this is I'm sounding like I'm complimenting myself, but I'm not, because what I'm about to say is that I'm watching these old Tomorrow episodes. It is just unnerving to me how much I'm like this guy. It's not I'm not trying to imitate him or anything like that. I mean, it's like, and you check it out on YouTube if you get a chance. You search for Tom Snyder, and you'll find a whole bunch of stuff. There's a whole bunch of episodes of all these different shows on there. And yeah, I had to actually stop watching. It's like, but it's kind of the same thing. I mean, okay, that was around 1982, or also, just so I don't know, everything just redoes. It's like 40 years later, 44. Yeah, so that's my prediction. That's my prediction on what's going to happen tomorrow night. And so far, that's my prediction on what's going to happen with the election. Now, who's going to be Trump's VP? I've been predicting for a long time it's either going to be Tim Scott or Brian Donalds. Although I have to say my personal pick would be Marco Rubio, but I don't know. The reason I thought Scott O'Donnell's is that because they're both in Congress, and that's what Trump picked Pence for, because Pence was connected to Congress. Now, of course, so is Rubio, of course, but nothing would piss the Democrats off than have a black man on the Republican ticket. Their heads will explode. It's hilarious. I just find it just so hilarious. But I don't know how much of that is a draw for Donald either. I mean, Trump has said his first criteria here is he needs somebody who's going to be a good president. Because now you have to understand this. I mean, this is kind of getting lost in this whole thing. Trump's only going to, if he wins, he's only do this for 4 years. I mean, he can't do it longer than one term. That's the really weird thing. We got two guys here who have both been president, who are both basically running for their lame duck term. They're both going to be out in 4 years. Now, whether Biden will be alive in 4 years or 5 years, that's another thing altogether. But so my personal feeling is Rubio would make the best president. But still, what do I know? There's a lot going on here, and I might be wrong about all this shit. I've been wrong before, and John, Jazz and I talk about that too. When I'm wrong on this show, I put the correction. Not only do I do a correction, I put it up front. I put it right in front at the top of the show. Like last night or whatever, last week I was wrong. I don't have any problem with this. The Democrats can't seem to. It seems like it's a constitutional thing with them, and I don't mean like the U.S. Constitution. I mean like bodily. It's a bodily thing. They can't admit they're wrong about anything. It's just like I just find this just astonishing. They'll never. I mean, seriously, we had 51 people say that the laptop wasn't real. Have you seen any sort of apology, not even just from the 51 people, but from the media covering it? No, you haven't, and you won't. The other thing will be interesting tomorrow night too, and I don't have a prediction about this, about how the moderators will handle this. Now, Jazz brought up in the interview, which I will start in just a second, about the fact that CNN's ratings, they're not just in the toilet. It's hard to emphasize this. They keep going down and down and down. And last month, they went down another 100,000 people in prime time. They're actually, at this point, CNN's prime time viewership is 400,000 people. I've explained this before. In cable television ratings, not just news, but anything under a million people is basically considered zero. So not only are they at 400,000 people at the prime viewing hour of their day, their MSNBC is doubling that, and Fox News has 4 times their ratings. It's not even close. So it's been brought up that people in the industry brought up the fact that CNN's brass might impose on Tapper and Bash, who obviously have a history of not liking Trump, to basically more or less behave. It'll be interesting. Now, and then there's the other thing. Are they capable of that? I think Donald is capable. He's self-disciplined enough, so I think, especially, he knows what's going on here now. It's not his first rodeo, and they're saying that Biden is going to try to trigger him into anger. I don't think that'll be successful. I don't remember if anything. I think it might be the opposite. I think Trump might trigger Biden, because Biden right now is the old man and wants people to get off his lawn. Now, I am too, but I'm a lot more eloquent at it than the president. Oh man. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, let's play the interview. You want to hear it? You want it? We got it going on, folks. I keep telling you that. So here we go. Here's 12 seconds of bumper music to make you happy. Joining us from his home in upstate New York, it's the weekend editor of HotAir.com, the UFO guy for Salem Media, and my brother from another mother, Jazz Shaw. Hi, Jazz. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Jim. Thanks for having me on again.
You're looking good in living color. I've been. Hey, do you remember Tom Snyder? Do you remember? Do you remember? Does
Oh
he?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've been watching old Tom Snyder episodes on YouTube while I've been recovering my hip surgery. It's like, yeah, he's in living color. And I have to tell you, I watch this guy. He scares me. He's too much like me. I don't
He
know.
was always sharp.
Yeah,
He was good.
I don't know. It's like that sounds like I'm a backhand compliment, but not necessarily. So okay, so I told you I put a bunch of notes together for our interview today. I lost them all about 5 minutes before you came on. They just disappeared out into the ether. So let's just start here. So there's a debate tomorrow. What do you think?
About the debate, I plan on. I normally don't stay up that late at my age, but I plan on staying up and watching at least the first half hour, 45 minutes of it because the whole thing has piqued my interest quite a bit. Um, I'm very concerned about the moderators. I do not know whether Jake Tapper and Dana Bash can be fair and treat both candidates even handedly, or whether this is going to be a 3-on-1 dog pile against Trump, which is more my suspicion. But I guess what I'm watching for, and I think what a lot of people are watching for, are two very different things from the two candidates. Number one, will Trump be able to contain himself and stick on message and bring up stuff about Biden's presidency and contrast it with his presidency? If he can remain calm and do that, I think he could have a very good night. As far as Joe Biden, it's already been leaked out. His plans are to try to egg Trump on and try to get him enraged and see if he'll kind of blow up like he did during the 2020 debates. But at the same time, we're all sitting here wondering, can Joe Biden actually stay on his feet for 90 minutes? Can he keep talking without a script for 90 minutes? Or is he just going to get kind of lost and go into those long pauses, or even worse, wander away from the podium? I mean, if that happens, that's the end of Biden's candidacy.
Yeah.
Because the whole world's going to be watching that in real time, and they're not going to be able to make excuses if something like that happens. So, but I don't know. They'll probably give him a lot of caffeine, whatever they gave him for the State of the Union, and he got through that okay. But he was reading from prompter. They're not allowed to have anything except a glass of water, a
Right.
pencil, and blank pad of paper. So Trump's going to be in there furiously scribbling notes as soon as they step up because he'll have memorized a bunch of stuff. Can Biden do that? Maybe. We'll find out. Um, I think it'll be informative. It'll also be informative about the media. CNN's ratings have been tanking for years.
Oh my God, they've even tanked even more in the last month. I mean, I don't even
Oh yeah,
follow this.
their prime time ratings are half of MSNBC.
Yeah.
It's less than a quarter of what Fox News gets.
Right.
But CNN got the chance to host this, and I did read a quote from their VP of marketing who said that they think this is a unique moment for them and they really need to show something to the world, show that they can deliver, that they are the original news network and they're still the go-to people. And if they do a good enough job, it could conceivably help them. But their big problem, and I wrote a column about this not too long ago and pointed this out, is part of the agreement they made that CNN made. I mean, is they're letting the other networks, MSNBC and Fox, the other cable news networks, they're letting them carry it too.
Yeah.
So long as they don't insert their own commentary, they don't. They have to show the CNN logo and their whole stage and the whole thing, the whole time, and they don't cut away except during the designated breaks for extra commercials or anything. But if they do that, they're being allowed to carry it. And this is so anticipated. Obviously, they're all signing up to take advantage of that. But then that doesn't help CNN as much because yeah, everybody's going to see the logo. They're going to see Jake and Dana, but the advertisers don't care about that. If the majority of the people tune in to watch it on Fox or tune in to watch it on MSNBC and their ratings don't go up at all, how much does it really help them?
Hey, can you
So those
explain
are my
something to me?
thoughts.
There's one thing here that I'm not clear on. There are going to be 2 commercial breaks, but are they
Right.
allowing the simulcasters to put their own commercials in or not?
Yes, they're allowing them to use. They all have their own advertisers. They
Right,
just have to contain their commercials to the same block of time as CNN's block of time.
right. That's the only thing I didn't know, and I didn't know that. It has occurred to me that because they're in such quandary with the ratings, they might instruct Bash and Tapper to be on their best behavior. They might do that. I don't know. I don't know if these people are possible. Capable of best behavior. Just like I don't know if Trump is either. Let me run something by you though. There's a lot of people who say that Trump doesn't actually have to win the debate. He basically just has to behave. Do you think
Pretty
that's
much.
true? Yeah.
I totally agree. And uh, his debate preppers, they leak stuff out. One of his spokeswomen who got cut off by Dana Bash on CNN the other day just for starting to talk about the moderators. Um, I don't. I think the moderators are less likely to be able to restrain themselves. Trump, man, he's always a wild card. You don't know which Trump's going to show up at any
Right.
given moment. At
That's
every
true.
rally. But he has been a lot more restrained this year at most of his events, and he still uses some of the nicknames which he thinks are very funny and other people are offended by, but he doesn't do it as often. Um, and I don't know. He's got a good message. If he can compose himself and he can get that message out there. And Joe Biden is simply, at least to me, and I try to watch everything he puts out, which is not much these days. He doesn't show up too often, but unless he's reading off a prompter, he doesn't do well. And what's his message going to be? We already know his message is going to be Trump's terrible, Trump's a danger to democracy, January 6th, abortion. That's all he's got to talk about. He can't talk about the state of the country. He can't keep pretending that inflation was 9% when he came into office when it was 1.4. He
Yeah.
can't pretend we don't have an army of illegal immigrants raping and murdering their way across the country. He can't pretend that crime isn't out of control, and he can't pretend that the world isn't on fire and that the wars overseas are getting worse, not better. America's not demonstrating a lot of leadership, and nobody's afraid of us. So I don't think he can come out and talk about any of that without opening the door for Trump in his response time to come out and say, dude, what are you talking about? Look what's going on, and just start citing facts. So I think Trump has a strong hand to play if he's given the chance to play it. I think Joe Biden, if they've got him on caffeine, if they've been coaching him well all week at Camp David, if he's awake, if he can stay alert and stay on his feet, um, he doesn't have a lot to sell, but I think he could pull it off. And if he handles attacks against Trump deftly, he will at least reinforce his image with the people who are already predisposed to not be big Trump fans.
Yeah. Now here's my prediction. If you go back to the State of the Union and even the debates from 2020, it seems like at this point, whatever they're pumping into his buttle region seems to work for about 45 minutes, and then he starts to fade. My guess is I don't think he can last 90 minutes. I'm guessing the last half hour or so, he will make some major gaffe. I don't know, not a minor gaffe, a major gaffe. He'll start
I
talking.
won't be shocked.
Yeah,
Um, it could be a verbal gaffe, like I said, the blank stare, wandering off. But even if Joe just stumbles and trips, even if he doesn't go all the way down, that's going to be huge news, because how many times has he fallen? They don't let him climb the big boy stairs on Air Force One anymore. They
right.
haven't for quite a while. Then they stopped letting him use the short stairs. They're taking him up the back. You know,
Yeah,
I'm waiting for them to install an escalator.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
um, so if he slips and falls, he could have a physical gaffe, or he could do one of the other things we said. He could just have what appears to be a mental gaffe, something like that. And I think that pretty much wins the debate for Trump.
David Strom wrote a piece on your website today about the fact that it's like Americans aren't buying this gaslighting thing anymore. It does seem like, especially you're talking about the inflation thing. I mean, I just find it amazing that they keep trying to pump this thing out about the fact the economy is actually fine. You just haven't noticed. I just find it's insulting to me.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I are blessed. We're both older. We're further along in our careers. We've done pretty well. We haven't been hit that hard, but she does all the shopping, and she's come home a few times with just the regular groceries we always buy. Which for a week it's just the two of us and the pets. You know, so it used to be average of like 50, $60 that we'd pick up for the week, and she came home not very long ago and just threw her receipt down on my desk over here, right in front of where I was working, and she had put a big red circle around it. $117, basically the same food,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, did you
Yeah.
have enough? She's like, yeah, but this is not right. And my wife's a hardcore Democrat, liberal Democrat feminist, lifelong. Even she's not voting for Biden.
Uh-huh.
She's not voting for Trump,
Yeah.
but she's taking a hard look at RFK Jr.
Yeah. Well, that is the thing. There does seem to be there's going to be a lot of Democrats who might just stay home, it looks like. There's or
I've never
metaphorically
seen her
speaking,
stay home, but if
you know.
if, if she's a reliable Biden vote, and she voted for Biden last time, makes no bones about it, and a lot of her friends did, they don't have to stay home. If they just go vote for RFK, every one of those is basically a vote for Trump because it's one less vote for Biden.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if his votes start like the huge numbers that we're seeing among Black voters, particularly in the Midwest and South, you know, that if they stay home or they vote for somebody else, I don't see how Biden wins. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. That never count your chickens. Anything can
Yeah.
still happen.
Well, that's the other thing I was just going to ask you. Do you see any black I don't know what it would be at this point, any black swan event on the horizon that could change people's minds? I mean, I don't really see it at this point, but matter of fact, if anything, I see something that could go against Biden even more, like the war, like the Israeli war going worse, or Ukraine, or something like that.
Yeah, if sometimes if you're doing bad domestically, if foreign affairs are going well, you can at least talk about that and point to that. But Biden doesn't even have that. I'm trying to think now that you said it of something that could happen. Even if he started reinstating Trump's policies on the border tomorrow, really doing it, not just pretending like he did before.
Yeah,
Um, you don't stop that overnight. You got to finish building the wall. You got to get more people down. It will take until the election. If it started tomorrow, it would be after the election before you would really start seeing a big impact
right.
because that's a ton of work that Trump has in front of him if he gets elected. You
Yeah,
know, so he's not going to fix that. You don't fix crime overnight. You've got to convince the big cities, many of which are blue cities and aren't fond of the police, to go reinstate and increase all their budgets and start backing up their police. You don't wave a wand and make the federal government can't make that happen.
no.
Um, no, I don't see a black swan event in Biden's favor. All he can really hope for is things don't get a lot worse between now and November, and they might not because they're already bad enough that you'd really almost have to try at this point to make them worse.
Yeah. I want
Um,
to get back to this thing about your wife going shopping because I do the shopping for our family too. And
oh, go ahead.
I haven't seen this. This is the thing. Every single time I go to the market, uh, and this happened last week even, prices go up. Now, there's supposedly be some stability in this inflation thing, but it has not trickled down to the grocery stores yet. I mean, I'm astonished. Every single time I go, prices are higher. It just makes me want to pull my hair out, you know?
Well, we track those numbers, and it's true. Biden's actually telling the truth for a change when he says that the rate of inflation has slowed. But if you
Yeah,
watch the financial experts, like on Fox, they talk about this all the time. They were a lot higher. They were up to 9% in the beginning of his second year, and now they've dropped down into the threes. But that's still positive three. So the prices are still going up. They're just going up a bit more slowly than
yeah,
they were back then. They're not coming down.
right.
And, you say you do the shopping. I do the shopping for my martinis, and I can guarantee you, Hendrick's Gin, a 175 bottle of that,
Uh-huh.
it's up over $130. Used to be like six. I mean, it's top shelf stuff, but it's not that top shelf. It used to be like $65, and I was like, when did that happen? You
That's
know,
nuts. It doubled.
it did double. It doubled in just the last 5 years.
Now, in my experience at the grocery store, and I know, like, people, I am talking colloquially, and people can correct me because I know this isn't technically true, but in my mind, in the last 18 months, everything in the grocery store has gone up basically 50%. That's
Yeah.
it, Now, I know that's not really, it depends on what item it is and all that sort of rot, I know that. But as a general rule, everything in the last 18 months has gone up 50%. It's like, it just pisses me off.
Yeah, some things more than others, obviously. Some things stay more stable. Durable goods
Yeah.
tend to stay more stable. Stuff that's more volatile, fresh produce, particularly not so much pork because that's very standardized, but beef and poultry and things like that, those are very volatile. And when the price of feed changes, when the price of the fuel to bring feed to the farm, to bring the animals out to be processed, when all those prices go up at the same time, then the price of the end product has to go up accordingly,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's definitely what it's, I was going to say, I think, no, that's definitely what we're seeing. So.
I want to ask you one more question about the debate before we move on, and that is, it appears that this is legitimate, that the Biden camp actually did expect Trump to bow out. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking in my mind, these people, don't you know this guy? And it just makes me think about the fact that they're not living in reality. I mean, Trump would rather fail than not show up. I mean, just knowing him personally. I don't know
Yeah.
him personally, but he's not. He would never not show up ever. And
It
so
wasn't an option for him. His people had been out there, and I just used on a post that's coming up later today a photo that we saved. They were out there putting up billboards saying anytime, anywhere, any place,
yeah, that's right.
because that was the quote he made. And no, but no, you're absolutely correct. Trump's or Biden's handlers were like, "Oh, this is too good because we can go set something up that's going to be so hostile, so terrible for him that he'll be forced to turn it down and walk away, and then we'll have a talking point. We offered to debate you, and you ran away. But like you said, Trump was never going to run away. You could offer to do it at Biden's house. He would have shown up.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know, he
Not
would
to
have done the
mention the
debate at
fact
Camp David.
they seem to think that they've jiggered these rules in Biden's favor, and I don't know if that's actually true. Like you said, he has to stand up for 90 minutes. He doesn't have any notes. It's like, this is not conducive to his personality. It just isn't. Trump
We
doesn't
have
give
not
a
we
fuck.
have not seen that from him all year. I would argue most of last year. We have never seen him, even with the State of the Union. He was up there for a fair amount of time, but he had something to lean on the whole time, and he was reading from a prompter. And he always
Yeah,
has either a prompter or he has the cue cards.
right.
And when he takes questions from the press, he has the questions on the card and the answer he's
Yeah,
supposed to give. We know that because sometimes he's screwed up and he's read aloud the stage instructions off of
yeah,
his
yeah.
card,
Really.
like applause, pause,
Uh-huh.
and you watch that, and at first it was a little funny, like, oh man, friggin' Joe. But the more you see that, it's like, wow, Putin's watching this. Xi Jinping is watching this.
Yeah, that's right.
The mullahs in Iran are watching this.
Uh-huh.
You think anybody's afraid of this guy?
No, no. Okay, let's move on. You wrote an article today about Jamal Bowman's loss last night. So, and the headline on your story is, how bad was it? So it was pretty bad. It was 60-40 basically, right?
It was pretty bad, but it wasn't pretty bad in the way that I had predicted. And I said in the article that I missed the call on this one because I just thought pretty much the entire district, even though it did shift after the 2020 census, um, would have just gotten tired of the clown show. And a lot of those people, there's a lot of Jews in that district and a lot of people who support Israel and not so many people who oppose Israel. And I just thought it might be more uniform. But at the beginning of the night, when the first results came in, the first returns that came in were all coming from the Bronx. Bowman was up by like 80%,
Yeah.
or with 80%, um, for a brief time. And then as more returns started coming in from Westchester County, where the district expanded to, and it contracted in the Bronx, then it started evening out. And then at a reasonable hour in the evening, he was down by 9. And at that point, they called the race, and he gave a concession speech. And then the rest of them trickled in overnight. And when all the counting was done, yeah, it was almost a 20-point thing. But the polls had him down by 17. So that was pretty much in line with the polls.
So I don't know if this was his concession speech or the speech he gave this morning, but he said basically he accused Latimer of basically brainwashing, and I'm thinking, but isn't that pretty much a definition of campaigning?
Well,
isn't it
yeah,
all brainwashing?
pretty much. I mean, hey, he's lying. Oh, you found a politician lying.
That's right.
Really?
I know.
We should run that on page 1.
Right. Exactly.
And he had, you could tell it was going bad because on election day, when people were already voting, he had another rally scheduled that AOC was supposed to come to, like the one she came to over the weekend, where he just went off in this profanity laced tirade. He just looked like he lost his mind. And even AOC canceled on him and didn't come to his
Oh,
rally.
really?
Yeah. And so they called that off. And then he just went and waited for the inevitable results, and then he conceded. So,
Are you surprised that she won her primary? Does that surprise you?
no, I was tracking the polling there, and they didn't do much of it, but she was way ahead. And her area is way further left, and it's more tightly compact. It's very controllable. You can walk most of that district.
Uh-huh.
Um, and she gets out a lot. Give her credit where due. She gets out with her people, and she tries to get them riled up, and they turned out for her. She didn't do as well as she did, last time, but she still comfortably. She did comfortably
That's
well.
good because I thought the complaint about her was that she wasn't connecting with her just constituency. But so I guess I'm wrong about that. I've been wrong before. I actually,
Really?
yeah, and I actually thought about that when I was reading your column about Bowman. It's like you and I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong, when I'm incorrect, no
Yep.
problem at all. Matter of fact, I usually put the corrections at the top of the show, not at the end. It's like, and so then I'm watching these goofballs on cable news, and it's like they won't admit they're wrong to save their lives. And it's like,
No.
Jesus. And then you're wondering why you have no credibility with the public. Yeah, it's just I find this just hilarious. It's like we'll lie about Hunter Biden's laptop and the Russian collusion. Are we going to apologize? No, never. We never will. Never ever will.
Yeah, and it's not like the Republicans never lie either. Like I said, they're all politicians. This is a dog bites man story.
Yeah.
But no, there's poll after poll, and we've covered it hot air repeatedly, that both Congress and the mainstream media, the confidence levels in both institutions have plummeted. And now confidence in the executive branch and the White House, given conditions of the country, not doing very well. Not a lot of people willing to say, yeah, the White House is doing a good job. Congress approval rating, last time I checked, 17%.
Yeah.
I think there's a slightly larger number of people who are okay with catching syphilis. That's really low, man.
Yeah.
That's very low.
Uh-huh.
And even the Supreme Court is suffering now, but a lot of that is because of the media, because they love the Supreme Court when it's run by liberals, and now it's like the Supreme Court's a bunch of demons because there's too many Trump appointees or whatever. But yeah, confidence in pretty much all institutions is down. I don't know how we fix that, but I think we do need to fix it, because when confidence is low, you start seeing unrest. You start seeing a lot of what we're seeing out in the streets today. a lot of unhappy people who really like Hamas for some reason. And they don't really have a good representative. Joe Biden actually has been more. He hasn't been supportive enough of Israel, but he's been a lot more supportive than any of those people wanted him to be. And there's only a handful, like Bowman and AOC that will really come out and attack Israel. And then the frustration boils over, and you see what we saw in Los Angeles. People showed up. You saw that
Yeah.
riot out there,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of people showed up, and they showed up at a mosque or at a
Synagogue.
temple, at
Yeah.
a synagogue, and they blocked it off. And when people tried to get through to get in to go to worship, they started physically attacking them, and fights broke out. And the first thing that I thought when I saw that story was, they keep trying to tell us, oh, we're not anti-Semites. We are against the policies of Israel. And that's fair enough. You can be against the policies of any country you like, not a problem. But only 8 miles from there was an Israeli embassy. Why didn't you go protest at the Israeli embassy? That
Yeah.
might have been appropriate, right?
Right.
No,
Right.
they went to a synagogue and they attacked Jews.
Yeah.
That's not policy. That's anti-Semitism.
Yes, it is. And I'm surprised. I'm just shocked that they're starting to normalize it. I mean, I just find this
Yeah.
unbelievable.
It doesn't even get that much coverage anymore because it happens all the time. And it's like, wow, is this the new America? Because it's not one that I recognize.
I know. I just had a brain fart. I suppose that's okay. So this you wrote a piece about banning left turns. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. Now, this is the thing when I've noticed in the press all the time. There's stupid journalists who write for the mainstream media that throw these ridiculous ideas. They're just absurd and they're insane, and they throw them out and they get their pieces in the Washington Post or whatever the hell it is, of stupid ideas. And this is one of them. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of just ranting here. I want this to stop. So, all right, now you wrote a very, very cogent article about this. The problem with banning left turns in major cities is it's pretty much a wash. If you take 3 right turns, you're going to pretty much end up, you waste about the same amount of time. And it's like, that's the part I don't get. It's like, there's nothing being accomplished here. And why is this in the newspaper?
I don't know, but it showed up. That's even not a partisan issue. There are activists on the left and the right, because a very similar article showed up the same week in the Wall Street Journal, saying, hey, we need to ban left-hand turns. These are people who live and work in Washington, D.C., in New York City, places like that. And clearly they're frustrated with the traffic. I get it. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't go there anymore, but I've had to drive around the Beltway numerous times and inside of Washington. And I live in New York. And I used to go to New York City regularly. The traffic's terrible, and these days the public transportation is worse. If it wasn't for Uber, I just would quit my job and not go at all.
Yeah.
Uber's the only way to get around, as far as I'm concerned. But no, they're frustrated, but they're like, it's these people that are turning left. I was like, really? You think that's the whole thing? And it's like, no, this doesn't make it. But like you say, the dumbest stories when somebody gets an idea, gets a hair up their butt, they can get approved these days in big outlets and get published. Time Magazine just ran an article, I wrote about this too, about rethinking the idea of pet ownership.
Yeah, I was just
going
to
bring that up. They basically declared war on pets.
Right.
I was like, really? Is this now a mainstream concept? We shouldn't have dogs and cats anymore? And that person was way dumber even than the person writing about the
and the amazing thing is pets incredible. In America are more beloved now than ever. I mean, like, and so this woman comes out, she writes this stupid damn art. What did that, like, she's one person, and how did this even get past the editors? I mean, you're involved in this process. I have no idea. But it's like, this is bullshit. I mean, it's like she's not speaking for anybody except herself, except she wrote 3,000 words on it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and that never would have got published on our site. But over there, apparently, it's like somebody was like, if it looks controversial, then maybe it'll draw some clicks. I guess that's my guess.
Yeah,
it's the theory. So I'll go out and say that people shouldn't own dogs and cats.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and I'm getting back to my brain fart a few minutes earlier, the stupidest thing I've heard in 20 years, and I'm going to milk it probably for the next 5, is Queers for Palestine. That's just,
Oh my God.
What, you're talking about these people. What are they accomplishing? What are those people accomplishing? Holy shit.
And they're still out there all over the place.
Yeah,
They
I
show up
know.
all the time.
I know.
I have suggested a couple of times at our site we should take Biden's program with those free flights, an app you can get a free flight to come to the country.
Yeah.
We should have an app for all of those people and say, if you would like a free flight to Palestine, to Gaza, we will pay and send you over there and pay for extra rainbow wardrobe and fake boobs and whatever you want, and put you down. Go see the Hamas people. Tell them you're there to volunteer. Let us know how it goes. Because they're going to throw your ass off a damn roof in moments.
That's right. They are. And I'm not going to let this go, man. I'm not. I'm going to be 5 years from now. I'm still Christian Palestine. Yay.
Yeah, you go.
It's the stupidest thing ever.
I'm saving up my money. If I meet one of them in person, I'll buy him a damn ticket. Here you go. Gaza City, one way. Not going to bother paying for the return flight.
All right, Jazz, we can't end without talking about the UFO stuff. And here's the main thing that in the UFO news the last couple of weeks. And this is really fascinating to me. So Harvard, 4 guys at Harvard put out this paper. And if I'm right, it was in a peer-reviewed journal, I think,
Yes.
about the fact that, okay, so maybe the extraterrestrials aren't coming from other planets. Maybe they're already here. Now, you and I have talked about the fact that David Grush has alluded to this and has corrected people when people said, well, extraterrestrials. He said, no, I said non-human intelligence, But the thing about this paper is that, first of all, it was entirely speculative, and it ended up in a peer-reviewed journal that normally publishes basically scientific evidence information. And it's put out by 4 guys at Harvard. Michael Masters, he's an author. He's written a couple of books on this. And I don't have any problem with the opinion per se, but it's just weird that it ended up coming from this source and it ended up in a peer-reviewed journal. That was the weird part about it. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, it's you can call it opinion, but I think opinion is when there's some topic of debate, particularly in politics, and it's like, oh, well, my side likes this and your side likes this. This is really more theory because they're accepting the fact that something is being seen and they don't know what it is. And if you're a scientist, now you have to figure out ways to do tests and go figure out what it is. But we have nothing to test yet. So they're starting with theories. It's like, if these are intelligent beings and they're not humans, what could the source be? And we've gone down the list before, and these guys, they're not varying that much. They're one of them, if you read deeply into it, they're really getting into the, some people refer to it as crypto-terrestrial. It's something that's been here either all along and evolved here or came here from elsewhere and for a very long time has been living here, but there's a good chance they might live under the water. Mm-hmm. And others, I think it's a little more far-fetched, think they might live underground, So that's some of the theories, and scientists can't rule that out until we get a hold of one, Other people, the more wild ones, it's like, no, they're not anything like that. They're us. But they're coming back from the future after time travel is invented. Well, again, we got to get a hold of one of the machines. If it can fly, if it can travel through time, we need that. Let's grab that. If you've got it, let's wheel it out. But until they do that, then yeah, scientists are going to speculate. And I think that's what that article was. It wasn't far-fetched or anything. It was exploring ideas with an intent of, as we collect, if we collect more evidence, more data, if the whistleblowers produce things, if the government produces anything, here's what we should probably be looking for,
But do you think there's any chance that this being released as a way to condition the public that maybe, that there may be powers that be that have concluded this already, and they're basically they're putting this information out, trying to get the public to get used to it? We've talked about this before too. Do you think that's part of this?
I think it's potentially part of it. I know there are people inside the government, even inside the Pentagon, who we talk to, who are very interested in getting the information out. There's definitely there's a UFO caucus in Congress now that is trying to get the information out. They've seen stuff they can't release yet because they can't get it declassified. Other stuff that's been reported to them from whistleblowers, but they haven't been able to confirm it yet. But yeah, I think there are a lot of people that are, the more they talk about it, the more they normalize it. I think the less they're worried about systemic shock for everyone in the country if they have to come out and go, oh, by the way, we got an alien, you know. So that's part of it. There's still people that are fighting it tooth and claw inside the Pentagon. I think most of those people wound up at AARO. They did a terrible job on their report. In some ways, I would say intentionally, the more and more we check into it. I think the former administrator of AARO was not being an honest actor. He was caught lying about some significant things. He came out and said, no, I never had any interest in this whatsoever. And then the guy who owns Skinwalker Ranch came out and said, what are you talking about, dude? I was at a conference on UFOs in Skinwalker Ranch a couple of years ago, and you were sitting at that at the table. And he came back and said, no, I was never at a conference like that. And then the dude comes out and produces the pictures and shows him sitting there at the conference. And there's a screen. There's a slide on the screen that says Skinwalker Ranch, you know. So he's lied. He's either lied about stuff or his memory is so bad that he should not have a government job, you know. So yeah, I think there are bad actors who want to hide it for some reason. There's other people, older people, including the current Secretary of Defense. I have spoken to somebody. He doesn't talk about it publicly almost at all, but he's very religious and he doesn't believe in aliens. He doesn't believe in time travel. He believes there are UFOs and he thinks they're demons.
Yeah.
And
I know that there's a big,
we shouldn't be poking around at them, you know? And I don't know. I don't know if you and I ever discussed that specific part of the story. I can't rule it out. I'm a quasi-religious person. I can't say they're not demons, but the first question that always comes to my mind is, okay, maybe they're demons, but would a demon really die in a plane crash? And why would a demon need a plane in the first place? You know? So that part's never made sense to me, but what do I know? I'm just some schlub, you know.
I have the feeling that there's probably a whole bunch of stuff going on simultaneously, you know?
Yeah, that's the most likely thing. I don't know about the time travelers so much. I have not seen yet convincing evidence that time travel, particularly reverse time travel, is even hypothetically possible. But traveling long distances in a short period of time is certainly possible.
My impression on the time travel is I think based on current knowledge of physics, they think maybe you could travel back in time but not forward. Is that pretty much what they've determined, or?
I thought it was the opposite.
Oh, okay.
You can travel based on Einstein's principles. If you get hypothetically in a starship that we create that's capable of doing 99% of light speed, which is supposed to be the speed limit for the universe. If you get in a ship like that now in 2024 and you travel to the nearest star at close to light speed, or halfway to the nearest star, it's going to take you about 4 years to get there and 4 years to get back. So it should be 2032 when you get back. But if you do that, when you get back and you go check everybody's clocks in their calendars, it's going to be like 2,380.
Yeah.
So you will have traveled vastly far forward into time. Well, that time did not pass for you, because the faster you go, the slower time goes. And we measure that. The satellites, we always have to constantly adjust the clocks on the satellites because they're traveling 17,000 miles an hour. And our GPS stops working if you don't keep adjusting it. Because very slowly, a few microseconds at a time, and they got to be really exact for GPS.
And yes, people don't realize
they drift off.
With the GPS, people don't realize how incredibly accurate this has to be. I mean, you're talking about nanoseconds. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, and this is your bullshit GPS on your $400 phone. I mean,
clocks on the moon travel time passes at a even more measurable, different rate than time passes on Earth. So they constantly have to adjust for these things. So yeah, time isn't just a fixed thing. Einstein was right about that part. But the reverse of what I talked about, you can't go slower than we're going now and have time go backwards. The
Yeah.
best you can really do is speed up how you experience time, or no, I'm sorry, slow down how you experience time and let time keep going in the same direction at the same speed back on Earth. That's
I'm
as
gonna
far
throw
as I
one.
know. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
That's how it works,
I'm
to
gonna
my
throw one
understanding.
more idea out to actually. You mentioned the Skinwalker Ranch, and I've read the books on this and all this sort of stuff. This place is legitimately weird. I
Oh
have
yeah, it
a
is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like people think they're playing this up. They're not. Pretty much everybody who goes there of any scientific credential actually ends up scratching their head. My theory is that there's an alien base in that mesa, and if you stop and think about this, a mesa is a perfect place to hide because you have two ways to get in, both from the top and from the side. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. But but okay, so what was my point? It's like this is a oh yeah, what was my point? Do I know what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing. It's like I'm just losing my mind. It's just
I think
ridiculous.
there's definitely something weird going on at Skinwalker Ranch. I have talked to Brandon Fugel. He follows me on Twitter. We trade DMs and things like that. He even invited me out there once, but I declined. Um,
Did you decline because you
but
actually couldn't or you didn't want to? Because people say
I didn't want to.
that shit
It was
follows you. That's ever
exactly, and I told him that at the time. I My wife and I we've discussed this. We've seen UFOs around here, and after we saw them, we had nothing serious, but a couple weird things have happened around our house already. I think we might have a propensity to have shit follow you home.
uh-huh.
So I think if I went out there, if anybody was going to come back and wind up with werewolves or zombies in the yard, it would probably be me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, thank you. But what it is, I don't know if there's an alien base under the mesa. Um, I have my own suspicions. It's like they have people out there drilling all the time. They have an unlimited amount of money. There are drilling companies who do mining work that could have gone out there 3 years ago and just drilled a shaft big enough for a man to walk into all the way down to whatever the big extraction is, and they could have just gone down and looked.
Yeah.
But they don't do it. They just keep drilling these little holes and looking for chips that are coming out. And that makes me suspicious whether or not they really believe that there is something under the mesa, or whether that just makes for a better story because they're making TV.
Well,
Now
that's right. That's
the
right.
stuff they see in the air, the weird crap that looks like it's a portal, and the rock, there's no explanation for what the rockets do when they send them up. There's something definitely odd going on there. But I don't believe for a moment they have figured out exactly what it is.
No.
And I don't know if they're even really that close. And it could be something like all the other stuff we talk about. They could be dealing with something, they're doing their best job, but they just don't understand because it's beyond our understanding, at least
Yeah.
so far.
Well, yeah,
that,
if you're
that's where I stand.
50,000 if your technology is 50,000 years ahead of us, it's magic. It's all magic.
We're the ants trying to figure out what's going on in the kitchen after we finally
That's
break into
correct.
the house.
That's absolutely right. And also you also brought up a really good point about the fact that they're in no hurry to do this because they got a television show to produce. I mean, I joke about I have friends who watch the show. They constantly give me crap about the Bigfoot stuff I put on. Because the thing is, here's the deal. There's like 12 shows on TV, on cable TV about Bigfoot. None of them ever find Bigfoot. They always get renewed. You get renewed for failing.
we have gotten, particularly after 2017, we have gotten so much closer to finding aliens than we have to finding Bigfoot. It's not even funny.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
we got UFOs.
Yeah.
We got them on film.
We do.
Nobody's got a really convincing Bigfoot film since Patterson Gimlin.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate this. I'm sorry we had some technical problems at the beginning, and that's my bad too because I got to figure out what the hell's going on here. So I really appreciate you doing this a lot, man. Always
my pleasure, man.
Talk to you. Yeah.
Yep. Anytime.
You take care. Okay. We'll see you. I better turn the mic on. That's Jazz Shaw. He's the weekend editor at hotair.com. Love that guy. Love him. You can probably tell. Yeah, so the Bigfoot, the 12 shows on Bigfoot, they never find Bigfoot. They all get renewed. You get renewed for failing. So what Jazz was talking about there toward the end, and you have to understand this. Have you ever watched that show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, or any of the documentaries on Skinwalker Ranch that have been done? And there's been at least 2 really good books written about this. It's not bullshit. The problem is that it's not just that people go to the ranch, see weird, really weird stuff. Virtually everybody who's done this says this stuff follows them home. That's the thing. And it's like, there's a lot of people who wouldn't mind dealing with it while they were there, but they don't want, they're having a hard time getting people to go because of this, to the ranch. You come home and it follows you home too, and nobody knows what's going on. It's like, yeah, I told you I mentioned to Jazz my theory. I mean, I think there's an alien base in that mesa, but and that would, and seriously, if you got technology that's that far ahead of us, he's right. We're the ants in the kitchen trying to figure out what the hell's going on. We don't know what's going on. It's like, I personally, I think at this point they should actually give up. They have a television show to produce, so there's plenty of magic shit they can put on TV, but as far as actually figuring out what's going on, they're not going to figure it out. The complaint is that whatever the entity is, the intelligence behind this thing is always one step ahead of them, and it is. So they're never going to crack it. We really literally don't have enough background to even figure out what it is. That's my story. This is part 3 of our show. Where we deal with the paranormal and usually the UFO stuff, and you think, well, we already did that, Jim. You guys already talked about that. Nope, there's more. There's more. First of all, I got a couple of things here. First of all, SpaceX. Now, Elon Musk runs and owns SpaceX. I'm not the only person who's said this. 100 years from now, when they write the story about Elon Musk, who's kind of sort of the Thomas Edison of his time in a way, they won't be talking about Tesla. They won't be talking about PayPal. Well, they're going to be talking about SpaceX, because SpaceX is an enormous success. If you're talking about like what it set out to do, or what it set out to do is to make orbital spacecraft, space flight, dependable and really cheap, and that's what they've done. So you take a think about this. So Elon Musk started this company about 10 years ago. He started with 160 employees, right? Last year, they launched 98 rockets into orbit, and they're bringing the cost of putting stuff into orbit way down. Like, for example, and this is another company of Elon Musk, but they put up these Starlink satellites. Now, these satellites are about the size of a coffee can. It's like the satellites are very small, and they basically, as far as I know, they have no real control. Once they get in orbit, they can't be, I don't think they can be adjusted, But the thing is, because they're so small, they can send up. If I'm right, they're sending up about 60 of them at a time. So the goal of Starlink is to basically be able to transmit internet all over the earth. That's the goal. Doesn't matter where you are. If you're in the top of Mount Everest, or you're in some stupid 4th world country in Africa or something, that you can get on the internet. That's the goal. And he's making it a reality. So their goal last year, 2023 calendar year, was to launch 100 rockets. They did 98. Their goal this year is to launch 144. Now, one of their competitors, or their primary one, is Blue Origin, which is owned by Jeff Bezos. Now, I didn't know this till today, which is the reason I'm bringing this story up. Blue Origin has launched 25 rockets. Okay, fine. But they've never put a rocket into orbit. They're simply straight up and straight down. Elon Musk said it's basically the Bezos balloon ride. And in that sense, it is. And you have to understand that putting something into orbit is so much more complex and difficult than just launching a rocket up and down. It's not even funny. Because orbit is a very strange thing. Let me explain to you how this works. if you're in orbit around a heavenly body like the Earth, that basically means you're going forward at exactly the same speed you're falling. In other words, if you slow down just a little bit, you'd fall and burn up in the atmosphere. If you were just going just a little bit faster, you'd exit orbit and you'd end up out in space. So the idea of orbit is to keep you're basically constantly falling. You're falling at the same speed you're going forward. That's the way it works. And that speed, it depends on what altitude you're at, but it's about 17,000 miles an hour. That's what it is. So to get something into orbit, you have to have very precise calculation. What Blue Origin's doing is basically a vanity ride. You go up, you come down. So supposedly now, because Blue Origin can't get things into orbit yet, I guess, I don't know. Now they're petitioning the government to get to stop SpaceX from launching stuff because they're saying it's harming the environment. But the amazing thing is the US government is SpaceX's primary contractor. So I don't think this is going to go anywhere. I mean, at this point, SpaceX is basically the private version of NASA. And then you think about what happened just recently, and I was talking about this, I think on Monday or last Wednesday, I can't remember, about the fact. So, the Boeing Starliner ship that went up a couple weeks ago to the International Space Station. Well, it finally made it. And when I said finally, this thing was delayed for years. And then they finally put it on the launch pad. It got delayed twice. And the second time, I think the countdown got down to 10 seconds where they cut it off. And like with somebody on one panel or one of the guests was mentioning about, can you imagine that there's two guys that rode up with that thing? Can you imagine them? It's like, holy shit. Is this thing going to work? I say, well, it did. They got up there and then it's leaking and now they can't come back. Well, I'm exaggerating. They can come back, but they've decided to stay up there to try to find out. It's easier to figure out in space what's wrong than it is once they come back to Earth. So they've decided it's a highly redundant system. If I'm right, they need 7 hours of helium in the spacecraft, and they have 70. So it's like they're not really in any real danger, but they've just decided to wait to figure out what's going on. They're leaking helium. So this thing, you got Boeing, and now Boeing can't make airplanes anymore that fly correctly. You got another company that's completely bogged down in their own bureaucracy. I have a friend of mine who works at NASA. He's a scientist there, and he has told me straight out. He said we could not do the Apollo space program at the present time. There's too much bureaucracy here to do it. And they're going to try. I think it's called Artemis. That's the new program to get to the moon again. It'll be interesting to see how they pull this off. Because they'd probably be better off just hiring SpaceX to do it. They probably would. SpaceX has been relentless in figuring out what their problems are. I'm not talking about internally, administratively. I'm talking about launching rockets. So there's that. So so Bezos is trying to cut SpaceX off, and that's not going to work. And I didn't realize reason I grafted on the stories. I did not realize that they had not done a single orbital flight yet. Okay, so 25 rockets. That's nothing to launches. That's nothing to sneeze at. Even though SpaceX did 98 in a year, but still they haven't done a single orbital one. Okay, there's that. So the second thing is, and this is really kind of interesting, Jackie Gleason died on Monday in 1987. It was the 37th anniversary of his death. Okay, why is he on that show? He's a comedian, he had a pretty cool life, la-di-da. Guy came from absolutely nothing and blew the doors off the entertainment business, basically. But that's not the reason I'm mentioning him on the show. He was friends with Richard Nixon, the president. I can't remember what number president Nixon was. And Nixon was an unusual man. Nixon was not a very social person. He was socially awkward. I mean, if you stop and think about it, he would not. I don't think he could get elected president today. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of photogenic and personal charisma to get the office now. And he was in the very first debate in 1960, which people are bringing up now because the interesting thing about that is if you listen to that debate on the radio, and of course, radio in 1960 was still relatively prominent. If you listened on the radio, you thought Nixon won. If you watched it on television, you thought Kennedy won because Kennedy looked fantastic on TV. And it wasn't just that. So Kennedy said that he did not need any makeup, which actually turned out to be a lie. He was actually playing Nixon, and Nixon said, "Well, if he's not going to have makeup, I won't have any either." But Nixon had a basically kind of a thick 5 o'clock shadow, and he was sweating, and Kennedy turned out lied. He actually did have makeup on, and so Kennedy looked fantastic on camera, and Nixon looked terrible. That's what happened. Very first television debate ever. I don't know if it's I think there were radio debates, but that was the very first one on TV. So at any rate, Nixon was an unusual man. Like I said, he was socially awkward. He didn't have a lot of friends. As a matter of fact, the only two really great friends there's a Florida businessman named B.B. Rebozo, who was his best friend, and they hung out for years and years. And amazingly, his second best friend was Jackie Gleason. And I don't know where these guys met or how this fell in, but apparently they were quite the pair. I mean, they were really attached to each other. And so every time Nixon went on vacation, he would go out to Florida and he'd see BB and he'd see Jackie, and they'd play golf and stuff like that. And apparently Jackie and Nixon really did truly like each other. So what you don't know about Jack Gleason probably is that he was totally into UFOs at a time when nobody gave a crap about this. This is the early 1970s. As a matter of fact, he had, at that time, probably the largest primary or private library of UFO books on the planet. He ended up giving it to the University of Miami. Now, I didn't know that. I went to the University of Miami. I wish I'd known then. They still have the collection. You can go see the entirety of his UFO books. They still have it, and it's on public display. You can check it. You can go look at it. So Gleason was completely obsessed with UFOs, so apparently it became a running gag between him and Nixon. You tell me about the UFOs, oh man. Nixon said, I can't. Okay, fine. So this is February 19th, 1973, right? Nixon has about a year and a half left in his presidency. It was cut short because of Watergate. But the following week was going to be Gleason's birthday. And they played golf that afternoon. And Nixon told Gleason, I'm going to come by to see you tonight. He said, keep some time open. Okay, fine. So Nixon drove to Gleason's house, and I think it was a Ford Galaxy or something like that, some stupid sedan. Now, this is in 1973. Now, you have to understand that even Biden was bitching. Joe Biden was bitching about the fact that the Secret Service would only let him drive his Corvette in his driveway. Presidents are not allowed to drive, period. But this is 1973, and nobody really gave a shit. I've talked about the fact that basically before 1980, no one gave a crap about drunk driving. It's really true. It's terrible. No? So Nixon got in this car and drove to Gleason's house alone, no Secret Service, nothing. He's in the car, and he picked Gleason up and said, we're gonna go somewhere. Get in the car. So they drove to, what is it? Is it Holloman Air Force Base? I can't remember the name of the Air Force Base down in Florida at that time. And apparently they drove up to the gate, and Nixon rolls the window down, and the guy in the gatehouse is shocked because the president of the United States is driving this car, and he says, "I'd like to come in," and yes, sir. They let him in. So what happened supposedly? And we know this story because Gleason told his wife, and as they ended up getting divorced, and his wife insists this is actually completely true. They went to some warehouse on the property of the Air Force Base, and they went through a bunch of doors and stuff like that, and they're in this weird room with these coolers, and Nixon didn't say anything. He is leading Gleason around, and Gleason is looking in the coolers, and he said, at first I thought there were little children in there in these coolers, dead. And then I stopped to look, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're not human. And he saw 4 of them. And apparently he flipped out. He had a hard time handling this, which was the reason his wife brought it up. So Nixon drove him home, and she said he didn't eat for weeks. He had a really hard time handling this, even though he said it's something he wanted. So she said, and he told her that they were all sworn to secrecy. Nixon said, "You can't tell anybody about this," but he told his wife. And after they got divorced, his wife decided to make it public. Supposedly, that's the story. Now, it's really interesting. When I was researching this afternoon. There's a guy who's written a book about this whole incident. It's called the Nixon Gleason incident, and the book came out last month. And I'm going to try to get him on the show. That's really interesting. This is really fascinating because Gleason's one of the few non-military people who says they've actually seen this in any sort of, like, I don't know, official capacity or what you want to call it, or legitimate capacity, or you know. Anyway, that's Gleason's story. Gleason passed in 1987. Like I said, the anniversary of his death was on Monday. So I just thought I'd share that with you. And getting back to what Jazz was talking about. It's really true. We know the UFOs are real. At this point, even the government admits they're real. So no one wants to talk about where they're from, or who's driving them, or who's flying them, or any of that crap. But the UFOs are real. And Jazz is right. We know more about the UFOs now than we know about Bigfoot. That's really true. I mean, I have Bigfoot people come on the show. Uh, they there's two schools of thought about Bigfoot. One is that it's an undiscovered primate. Well, that makes perfect sense. And those things exist. Matter of fact, this just came up in the news a few days ago. They found a new species of giant squid. Now, I've been talking about this. The giant squid was rumored for 2,000 years until in 2006 they finally caught one. And it was a rumor. It was a myth. It was folklore. And no one really knew if they were real or not, but they finally caught one. Now, they say that just last week they found a new species of a giant squid, and this one lays apparently fairly large eggs. So, I don't think that's caviar. Oh, one more thing too. So if you're watching the Jazz Shaw interview, you'll notice I'm not in our studio. Now, I have use of this studio from 9 p.m. Central Time on at night. There's another company that uses this studio, and I've said this in the past. They have dibs. So during the day when we record these pre-record these interviews, usually I'm in my office. That's the thing. And I wasn't even watching, I got a, oh, you don't want to, I'm just not going to bore you. I'm not going to bore you with this crap. Yeah, I gotta pay a little more attention to what I'm doing on the screen. Because, my mouth is dipping below the edge. It's like, oh, geez. So tomorrow night is debate night. Like I said, we're planning on going live at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 Central, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be Tim Conaway, former executive editor of Hustler Magazine, Larry Newman, bail bondsman extraordinaire, and also Bigfoot hunter for the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, and Jeff Meyer, CEO and publisher of Cog News, and myself. And your phone calls. You see that little ticker on the bottom here? You can call in. Now, like I said, we've had pretty good live viewership for these shows, which surprises me because there's a zillion people doing this shit the same time we're doing it, and yet I guess people find us. So you're welcome to call in and talk to the panel. That's as soon as the debate is done. I'll just reiterate what I said up front. I think that Biden's going to fall on his ass. That's what I think. In the last half hour, probably. We'll see. I've been wrong before. I was wrong in 1972 once I was in high school. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay, folks. I want to thank you for watching. Very, very much want to thank you. I want to thank Esperanza. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And that's not, I want to point that out. That's not Donald Trump. I have an Uncle Donnie. And good night to you, wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.